All These Sleepless Nights, original title Wszystkie Nieprzespane Noce, 2016 Polish film described as a mix between a drama and a documentary. The camera follows a teenager named Krzysiek through a couple of months of, well, as the title suggests, mostly sleepless nights. Parties, drunk walks home in the early hours of the morning, hookups and breakups, heart-to-heart conversations with friends. There isn't really an overarching narrative or plot. The thesis presented at the beginning of the film is that there is this psychological phenomenon where people remember moments from their youth, from the years growing up, much more vividly than any other period in life. And of course, when you think about it, it makes sense that you would remember those nights, and that this is what would stand out, those individual moments, rather than, you know, days where you sit at school or work or whatever else you tend to do during the day. The characters apparently all just play themselves. I don't know exactly whether all of the dialogue in the film was improvised, to what extent there was even like a script in the first place, or if it was all just real life and improvisation. But in any case, the film does create a believable illusion, at least, that these are definitely real people we're watching. Now, at first I was gearing up to hate the movie because I felt that it's kind of going nowhere, and I thought that the main character was annoying as hell. But then at some point it suddenly clicked for me and I became invested. And then as soon as Krzysiek meets Eva, who then becomes his girlfriend, the movie really started to shine for me. I thought that was the moment where it kicks into gear. And the key thing is how actually realistic it manages to be. Despite the fact that I didn't exactly see myself in the characters on screen, I did recognize some individual situations or behaviors that I myself have been party to. And even all the other things that didn't apply to me directly, I at least know someone who's like that or have seen things like that growing up. I was watching it, you know, at times being annoyed, at times cringing, at other times laughing. But regardless of the emotional reaction, I kept thinking, yes, this is accurate as hell. I believe this. I've been there. Now, this alone would be just interesting, but certainly not enough to make for a memorable movie on its own. But the film is elevated by the cinematography and the way it uses music. Let's start with the way it looks. A lot of camera movement, a lot of swirling around, getting up close to the characters, a lot of wide lens shots, especially outdoors, despite always having clear focus on the characters' faces. We usually also see a lot of the surroundings, a lot of backgrounds. The film uses the setting, the city lights, the empty streets of the mornings, the random people that the characters meet, the party venues and so on to really pull you into its world, and it works splendidly. The cinematography actually reminded me of Terrence Malick's films, which is very high praise, and specifically Song to Song, which weirdly enough is a film I didn't enjoy as much, but I do think they're kind of similar in following around a group of people who are trying to find some sense and meaning in their lives and in their relationships with others. But the key part in the difference, again, is relatability. With Song to Song, I always felt that, one, this is, you know, a very posh group of show business people, sort of like a very specific avenue of life. Two, this is all pretend. These are actors, very artificial and manufactured and pretentious. Whereas All These Sleepless Nights is infinitely more relatable because it presents people and situations I know from my life. Plus, it has the documentary angle going for it. And just like it makes heavy use of the cinematography to draw you in, it uses music in very similar ways. Because so much of the film takes place on parties and dance clubs, it's very natural for it to have this steady pulsating rhythms of sorts in the music that just keeps on playing almost all the time. Now, weirdly enough, as much as the movie was praised by critics and on festivals, I believe it also won Best Director at Sundance or Cannes, can't remember at the moment. I got a sense that the general public, at least in Poland, didn't like it. I think perhaps it is because of the lack of cohesive narrative structure, perhaps because the characters can be frustrating in how aimless they are, much like the movie. But that's kind of the point. The point is that there is no point. They're young, they're dumb, they're trying to figure themselves out as they're reaching adulthood, and they're just making shit up as they go along. I never thought that the movie says, they are correct in their actions or beliefs, that these behaviors, that it endorses these behaviors. Quite the contrary. It doesn't pass judgment on its characters, it just shows them exist. And because what they're going through is something that I think, to an extent at least, we've all gone through, it manages to be accurate, relatable, and true. I liked it. I liked it a lot, and certainly more than I thought I would based on the first 15 minutes or so. Do give it a chance. It's available on Netflix.